I'm shocked Garrett Riley is gone. Tonight, it happened. Dabo made the decision. But I'm not surprised that this is how it ended because when Clemson needed an offense that worked the most, it disappeared more often than not. We'll talk about it right here in an emergency pod, the live edition of Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. And you know why we're number one, and it is because of you listeners and viewers like you who stick with us and me Monday through Friday, all throughout the week, every single week. As you know, we bring you exclusive Clemson content right here. And man, do we have some exclusive content for you, because some breaking news happened today, as you are probably well aware, but we'll talk about it. If you're a diehard, maybe you don't know about it, we'll talk about it. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss another episode. If you're listening on podcast, thank you so much for following me. If you are on YouTube, make sure you get in the comments as well during the live episode. I will try to get to some of your comments as we go throughout the show. But, you know, we have a structure here to tell you a little bit about how Locked On does it. We have 3 segments in 30 minutes, give or take. We're going to talk segment 3, what's next. So stick with me to the end. We can talk about how Dabo will possibly define his legacy moving forward, because there's a lot he has to do moving forward. Segment 2, we're going to talk about Dabo getting rid of his college roommate, a guy he's known since 1990. Pretty crazy. I'm sure pretty emotional situation. But Mickey Conn, no longer part of the secondary coaching staff. And the defense is now undergoing a little bit of a reset. But the biggest news is not Mickey Conn. It's not what Dabo Swinney is going to do next. The biggest news coming out of tonight is that Dabo Swinney did, in fact, let Garrett Riley go after what I could say, what everybody would probably agree with me, in a bowl game disaster. I mean, it was really and truly that. Before we get into anything, you know how I got to say here and give a shout out to our primary sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Rugie. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, well, now's the time. Head over to rugie.com/lockedoncollege and get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugie, ready, feel present, feel confident, feel ready. All right, so we've got to start off. And again, I'll get into some of your comments over on YouTube as well. But welcome to the emergency episode. You already know this is not a normal podcast, but I'll try to make it as normal as possible. Let me give you my honest reaction right out the gate, because Garrett Riley now no longer the offensive coordinator, Mickey Conn no longer the safeties coach. It's a pivotal time for Clemson. You know, I am pretty much shocked that Garrett Riley's gone so quickly. I genuinely thought, to be honest with you, I thought that he would get one more chance. I felt like the vibe is that Cade Klubnik was a lot of the problems. You could not trust him. And I thought maybe they would see Garrett Riley and what he could do with a new quarterback. But again, I'm not shocked that this is kind of how it ended, especially after what happened at the Pinstripe Bowl, which was absolutely another offensive dud. The same problems continued again. The same exact situations continued again. Ridiculous plays, situational unawareness, if you will, and just overall lack of using the running game and forgetting about it yet again. All things I tweeted about during the game. it goes back to, this is yet again another game where Garrett Riley needed to show that he could win a game that mattered, and he can't. Garrett Riley has no history of winning any game that matters. Now, he's won some decent games. He's won an ACC championship game. But when it comes to like games that matter, like last season winning all the important games, he lost all of them. This season winning all the important games, he lost all of them. Now, they rebounded towards the end of the season, but still too little too late. And a lot of rights were wrong, or wrongs were righted during the Gamecock game. But, you know, Clemson fans don't want to just win Carolina. You know, that's kind of what Carolina wants to do. They want to just beat Clemson. Clemson wants to beat Carolina and also be relevant nationally. Garrett Riley, there's no proof to me in the pudding that he was anything but a bust when it came to the games that matter. And so he now is gone, all because of a pattern that really you can't ignore. I mean, Garrett Riley was not hired to be average. He was not hired to have the most senior team and have a season like this. He was hired to get Clemson out of a rut. He was hired to make Clemson explosive and scare defenses. I don't think ever we felt like a defense has been worried. He was also hired to be a guy who could bring in quarterbacks like his brother could. And he hasn't. And the recruiting at quarterback has been lackluster. And, you know, the offense has not been explosive. We look back now and we think, man, Brandon Streeter actually did a decent job with DJ Uiagalelei. We look back now and we think, man, we kind of wanted Tony Elliott out. We kind of did, didn't we? Now Tony Elliott's got 11 wins. And now everybody wants Tony Elliott back. You know, the Pinstripe Bowl, to me, could have been a path where Garrett Riley survived. I think the word I'm hearing behind closed doors is that there were some things that were decided, but yet the game was, you know, kind of that last straw, if you will. And it was just like, you know what, this isn't going to get any better. I thought Dabo might have convinced himself that Garrett Riley deserved another chance because they could get a new quarterback in 2026 and reset expectations all over. But they had to show some sort of life in the bowl game, and 10 points where they didn't even really score till 8 minutes to go in the game, left in the game. 43 rushing yards. Again, another situation where Garrett Riley decides he doesn't want to run the ball anymore. And arguably Adam Randall, one of the best players on offense. Especially when you don't have Wesco, when you don't have Antonio Williams. But don't give it to Adam Randall. That's a good idea. You know, the offense definitely struggled when it mattered the most. But it didn't match up with what the offensive line you had either. When you look back at, did Garrett Riley get his best players involved in the right situations? You could say no. When you look back and say, did Garrett Riley do what was best for the offensive line that he had? You could say no. And I mean, there was a lot to blame. Don't get me wrong. You could blame Cade Klubnik plenty. You could blame the offensive line plenty. You could blame injuries. You could blame, you know, going off script on some of these players, right? You could do that. And it was shocking because 2024 was pretty good statistically. But Dabo said it in his statement, and that's what matters the most, is production in the here and now and for the future. And he did not get the production that he wanted, and he did not get the results that they wanted. And so therefore, they're moving on. And it's not about liking Garrett Riley. I don't think Garrett Riley did anything to dislike him. But it goes back to wins. That's what matters, wins. So this firing uncomfortable for sure. I'm sure a lot of players liked him. And I'm sure Dabo Swinney, kind of looking back, is confused at how this didn't work, because he went out and got the guy that was a Broyles Award winner that just went to the national championship, got him a few days after that game. I mean, we all thought this was a home run hire, and that's why I'm starting to back off of like drooling over big time hires, because I'm going to be more of a wait and see guy. Plus, I'm a skeptic anyways. But what Garrett Riley brought to the table obviously did not fit what Clemson's trying to do or the team that he had. So what they'll have to do is move on from here. All right. We're going to go in and take a break. We're going to come back here on Locked On Clemson, get into segment 2, talk about Dabo's longtime friend, Mickey Conn, no longer part of the staff. And I'll look at some of your comments over on YouTube on this live edition of Locked On Clemson. Let's talk about something that most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life. It just doesn't switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rugie at Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rugie at Ready is a next generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. Rugie at Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in one mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. And most men are ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment's right. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, well, now's the time. Head over to Rugiet.com/lockedoncollege. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugie at Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. All right, welcome back in segment 2 here on Locked On Clemson. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and thank you for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, we're starting this new thing. It's called the Everydayer Club. It gives you access to ad-free audio for Locked On Clemson and compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other podcast apps. Also, you get an invite to the Everydayer Club Discord servers, which include a lot of group chat. And for the listeners of the show, hosts are in there as well, so you can hang out with us. You can go to lockedonclemson.supercast.com or check out the link in the description after this show is published and tap on the link there to learn more. All right, getting back in segment number 2. Thank you again for being part of the show. Steven gets in, says, no talk about the bowl game. Well, I mean, I had full intentions, honestly, Steven. I had full intentions of talking about the bowl game. I mean, this is kind of an extension of what happened in the bowl game, as atrocious as it was. It was a fitting end to the 2025 season and what this team is. This team was a nothing team. I mean, to be honest with you, they completely did not rise to any occasion at all, other than the South Carolina game. I mean, that's about the only game that I could say that they rose to the occasion on and met at least some sort of expectation, righted some of the wrongs. But most of the time they fell flat, and they fell flat against Penn State again. It was cold, snowy. The ball was pretty hard and a little bit slippery on the ground. Wasn't good turf, in my opinion. If Cade Klubnik didn't throw the ball into the dirt, he threw it right into their hands and they dropped it. And again, it goes back to Garrett Riley, in a lot of ways, not using the right players, not using his best players in the right situations continually. And then forgetting about Adam Randall, forgetting about the run game. We knew this all season. I mean, any Clemson fan could tell you that if you don't rush the ball with some sort of success, even when you don't have success. Now, a lot of fans got onto me in X and said, Morg, well, the running game stinks, and that's why he's not running it. No, you can't just give up on the run game. If anything in 2025 with this Clemson team has taught you anything, it was that you had to keep fighting with the run game. Even if you're getting a few yards at a time, you have to keep showing the defense that you're going to keep trying it, because if you don't, then you become predictable. I mean, other coaches that were fired told us that Clemson was predictable. Other coaches that ended up getting kicked out of their team would go on record and say Clemson's offense is absolutely predictable. And those were the bad coaches that their teams didn't even like. I mean, if Clemson had scored 35 points, we're not having this conversation. I really, truly believe that. I think if Clemson had scored 35 points, then, we're going to see Garrett Riley try with maybe Tate Reynolds, maybe Christopher Vizina, or whoever could have possibly been in the transfer portal. Now, I know I've been in previous shows saying I'm on two realms here. My first realm is spend a lot of money for a quarterback and let the other positions fall as they may. The other thinking is don't spend any money on a quarterback. Ride with Christopher Vizina or Tate Reynolds or Chris Denson, whoever wins out, and absolutely spend all of Clemson fan base's money on an offensive line and a defensive line. That's where I'd spend my money. And maybe if you said, I'll give it to you. Maybe a few guys in the safety, because the back end is terrible. I mean, my goodness, Ricardo Jones, thank goodness that you got 5 interceptions or however many you got this year. But son, young man, you're slow. I mean, you saw it in the bowl game. So and the wide receiver that caught that big 70-yard touchdown pre-game said he came from Syracuse. He was a transfer from Syracuse, said he never had scored against Clemson. It had always been a chip on his shoulder, and he wanted to score against Clemson, and he did so with like a 70-yarder and torched him. I mean, it's that kind of stuff. It's that kind of disrespect that previous Dabo teams would never allow. Here we are. 35-point game, though. Winning the game, 35-point game, but another 10-point game, another game where it was like pulling teeth to score. It's a pattern, not a one-off. Clearly a pattern. And the fans could see it. The fans can see it. And by the time the fans see it, it's too late, Unfortunately, really, you can't blame Dabo because, man, he spent the money to get a Broyles Award winner that was had just went to the national championship game. Looking back, it could be more truth is that Sonny Dykes did all the work. It could be the more truth that Sonny Dykes put together the offense and made all the critical decisions. And maybe it's just lightning in a bottle, or whatever, just a one-off because of the talent they ended up having. All right, I'm going to get to segment 2 here because I promised you I would. Let's talk about Mickey Conn now because this one to me is emotional. He'd been with Clemson since 2016. Basically, Dabo says he's part of the family, which I completely agree with. And I actually didn't have any problem with Mickey Conn. He's brought in, now not every single year, in the past, last year or 2 years, been kind of duds in his recruiting classes. But it's also not Clemson, not Mickey Conn's fault, in my opinion, because Clemson had not been doing well nationally, and he was landing guys, and then they were decommitting. So I'm really still kind of torn about Mickey Conn. I know a lot of people probably won't agree with me on this. But he's part of the family. He won championships. And he put a lot of guys in the NFL. So you couldn't make a quick decision here. But to me, you had to get rid of the biggest glaring issues for this team. Now, I still don't like that Clemson has, and Dabo still, to me, even now is I'm hearing word of Nolan Turner. More former players with no experience. I'm going to hold my judgment here because I don't know this for sure. But if Clemson continues to elevate player coaches that have no experience, it just doesn't make sense to me. You know, you don't learn on the job at the New York Yankees. You don't learn on the job at the New England Patriots. You know, the elite schools, you don't learn on the job, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is how I feel. So Mickey Conn out. I think a lot of people kind of felt like it was happening, even though I kind of disagreed. But Clemson's secondary was definitely a problem. A lot of bust, a lot of explosive plays, a lot of confusion, lacking depth big time. I mean, do you know anything about Noah Dixon? Do you know anything about Rob Billings? Do you really know anything about Kylan Griffin? There's a lot of safeties that Clemson has that you don't know anything about. And then they had to go get Ronan Hannafin, who actually didn't do a bad job for the most part for the whole season. He had some busts here and there, but Ronan Hannafin converted wide receiver, you know, to make up for it. And then Ricardo Jones, not a bad player, statistically had great stats, but we know physically is not fast. And I used to complain that TJ Green was slow. You remember when TJ Green got torched by Alabama? Because I do. Pepperidge Farm remembers, and Morgan Thomas remembers. And I'm still salty about that. Honestly, I think Clemson would have won the national championship in 2015 if Mackenzie Alexander had not gotten injured. And I'm standing on that. So to me, though, it wasn't shocking, though, because Tom Allen, you know, restructured the secondary mid-season to put his son in there. And they improved. So to me, that was where the writing was on the wall. You know, and there were plenty of times where we saw on the sideline, if you went to these games, you saw Dabo arguing with Mickey. And it was not fun, I'm sure, because these guys are guys that, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody in any kind of things that I say, but because these guys were family, high school roommate or college roommates, right? You know, this was loyalty to its, you know, max there. But loyalty without results is not sustainable for Clemson. Everyone is watching. Fans are watching. Administration's watching. National media is watching. And the boosters are watching. The margin for this loyalty and long-term development is much less now because everyone else is replenishing their and resetting their teams faster. Thomas Allen going to oversee the secondary. Again, some discussion that Nolan Turner may be elevated. I'm not going to go much further on that because my thoughts are I would hope someone else. I'm not a big fan on these former player coaches because it tarnishes their legacy. I mean, look at CJ Spiller. We're so upset about CJ Spiller, and he's my favorite player. I got a signed jersey behind my head right now. And he's a Hall of Famer, not only at Clemson, but in college football. And, you know, him being a coach has been frustrating for fans. And I'm one of those. All right, hey, we're going to take a break. Again, last break, going to go into segment 3 where we talk about what's next for Clemson and what Dabo Swinney will do in the future. Right here on Locked On Clemson. Hang with me if you're an everydayer. You know, segment 3 can be the spiciest if you stick with me. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better because every Friday night before the game tips off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become an appointment for you to view with NBA Happy Hour. It adds some extra energy for Friday nights, and the timing's perfect because it's right before games and right before the weekend starts. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Again, every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern, a little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of that Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sports betting or sports book partner of the NBA. All right, I'm checking over on the comments. I don't know if it's StreamYard or what, but I'm not seeing any comments other than what Steven said about the bowl game talk. And I'll try to make another episode this week. Maybe tomorrow's episode will be about the bowl a little bit more, because this is totally a reaction show from the firing of Garrett Riley and Mickey Conn. Now, I looked and I saw like 90 something people watching live. So I'm just shocked that I'm not seeing any comments. So maybe YouTube's messed up or something. I don't know. All right, let's get into segment number 3. Again, if you're new here, Locked on Clemson, Monday through Friday, every single week. I've been doing this since maybe February, and December has actually been my greatest and best month of all. Can't believe it, really, because Clemson only had one game in December, but over 80,000 views on YouTube, over thousands of views on podcasts. Best month ever, and only one game. So I'm enjoying it. Hopefully you're enjoying it. I'm going to try to keep doing Locked on Clemson as long as I can because, I enjoy doing this. I've been doing the radio, been doing podcasting for many, many years. I'm switching over to becoming an airline pilot eventually in the next couple of years. So maybe my time will run out, but I'm going to try to keep going as long as I can. So stick with me and support me by just hitting that follow button on podcast or subscription over on YouTube. And I'll really appreciate it. All right. Segment 3 here for the everydayers. Thank you for sticking with me. What comes next and why this could define the Dabo Swinney era? I do believe that this is the most important part of the episode because, the next offensive coordinator is really, really got a lot to handle. And maybe that puts a lot more stress on who could take the job. Because Clemson has now cycled through what we would arguably say is guys that weren't really bad. Guys that we look back and say, serviceable offensive coordinators, but just didn't have the it factor. Tony Elliott had that with Jeff Scott. And then looking back, Tony Elliott did a great job with DJ Uiagalelei. Other teams had DJ and could not have the success that they had. So that's kind of shocking to me. Brandon Streeter, only given 1 year. He had a track record at Richmond. He had a track record at Liberty of successful offensive play calling, but only got 1 year. Garrett Riley actually improved in 2024. We thought he had everything set up for success in 2025, and it just crumbled. And he had Cade Klubnik enough years to develop him into something. And what we saw is Cade Klubnik went a hard 180 backwards. The confidence went away. The pocket presence got worse. And even at the bowl game, the jitters of Cade Klubnik, maybe it was because he doesn't want to hurt himself for the NFL draft, but Cade did not want to get hit. He was flinching many times as he threw balls in the dirt. And you could say, I have done this on the radio many times. I have been the devil's advocate for Garrett Riley for many times, many, many times, because The offensive line's been pretty bad. But we somehow give Matt Luke a pass. And the running game rotation has been none, but he's forgotten about it too. And then the wide receivers has dropped. The Cade Klubnik can't stay in the pocket and be confident. So there's a lot going on that I've defended. And I think Garrett Riley is defensible. But year 3, man, that's where it gets kind of tired. And if you're going to expect players like Cade Klubnik to be at their best of their game, the top of their game 3 years in, then you better still expect that from your offensive coordinator, who's also your quarterback coach, at the top of their game 3 years into it with the same quarterback. And it was not. And I mean, far too often, too, they'd get into the red zone and throw nothing into the end zone. Like, not even try. That's not putting fear in the hearts of any defense. You're not going to go for the jugular when you get opportunities. You're just going to keep throwing the ball short. And maybe a lot of it was Cade. But, what does Clemson actually need? Is it that the offensive coordinator needs to bring in their guys? Because I could see that. And, I've not been a big person on the position coaches developing players. To me, so like Pete Nakos, I think that's how you say his name. Forgive me, Pete, if it's not. But Clemson loses the game. Chappell Fowler posts something about the linebackers, and Pete says, well, Ben Boulware did a great job developing Sammy Brown. What? Ben Boulware owns a gym before this, was a linebacker himself, an undrafted free agent, got to the Panthers and didn't get a spot. Was a legend at Clemson, was a legend at T.L. Hanna. And, me being a West Side guy, I'm, always not going to like anybody from T.L. Hanna. It's just the way it is. But that aside, I cried when Ben Boulware gave his speech in Tampa. I was right there in like the first row watching him on stage, crying my eyes out because Clemson had won a national championship in 35 years. So I get it. He embodies a true Clemson fan and player. And I've met him face to face. I've been on radio with him. But to say he developed Sammy Brown was a freshman All-ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Freshman All-American. Sammy Brown was a leading tackler his first year. So don't. There are plenty of other linebackers on the team that didn't seem to improve at all, or that we rarely even saw. And some that just left the team. Actually, 2 guys that just left the team. So I'm not going to sit here and try to blow snow at you about this position coach is a developmental genius or not. Because to me, it's not about that. It's about developing a relationship with these kids, whether it be in the portal or whether it be in recruiting high school players and getting them on campus and winning them over and then paying them. Now you got to add that to it as well. So when it comes to position coaches, I just need guys who can recruit, who can be likable to players, whether it be 21-year-old or 18-year-old, and guys who can convince and evaluate and tell Dabo, hey, you got to pay this guy. Development stuff, to me, just go out and find some better players. Development is not what college football is about anymore. It's about replacing your players quicker than the rest of your competition. And Clemson's not doing that. That's one of the big problems. So Clemson's got to get, as you were mentioning in the comments, Clemson's got to get, if they change more position coaches, they've got to get guys who can bring in better players quicker And maybe that's a lot to do with Dabo. A lot of people I've talked to behind the scenes have said, Morg, the staff can only do what Dabo lets them do. I don't disagree with that either. But to me, you keep around the staff that is able to resonate with the players you need and bring those players in. That's the guys you bring in. That's the guys you keep. Like Tyler Gresham. You keep Tyler Gresham. I mean, that's it. You keep Tyler Gresham. And if Ben Boulware is able to bring in dudes at linebacker, which it seems as if he's doing things publicly that I like, then do that. But I'm not going to sit here and say he played a big role in Sammy Brown improving. I mean, I just think Sammy Brown having more snaps improved Sammy Brown, really. But when it comes to an offensive coordinator, the first problem is whoever they bring in, maybe they do need to bring in some of their guys. Like Tom Allen said, hey, you know what? It's time for my son who knows what I'm going to do before I say it out loud. Maybe my son can help kind of relay the message better than Mickey Conn. So maybe that's true. Maybe that's what worked with Tom Allen. Obviously, it improved a little bit. It wasn't because Thomas Allen all of a sudden developed dudes better in 5 weeks. It's because Thomas Allen could convey the message and the game plan better and the adjustments better, in my opinion. Get them in their right positions better. So whoever comes in as an offensive coordinator needs to have their guys that they can lean on to get the team as efficient as possible. When you look at this team last season, 2025, meaning how many times have you said, this Clemson team looks kind of uncoordinated? I said it a lot. This Clemson team looks kind of uncoordinated. Yeah. And so that all falls back to the offensive coordinator, but also the staff around it. Why are they, have you looked at times where you said, why didn't they have this guy starting 3 weeks ago? Why didn't they rotate this guy? Christian Bentinker. I mean, it's like they spark and then they disappear. It's like there's a lot of uncoordination with the coordinator position throughout and the staff around them. So the next hire is not really just about coordination and play calling. It's about the whole package too. It's about an identity. It's about intentionality, right? Using your best players in the best situation possible, finding the matchups quickly, being physical and not forgetting about the run game. Because have you noticed when you watch these playoff games, the better teams are the teams that are good running teams? Have you noticed that? College football is kind of going away from that Big 12, just gun it Lincoln Riley era, right? They're going away from that. I'm not saying completely. It's still a shotgun heavy league, but a lot of the better teams, elite of the elite, have some stud running backs. And don't forget about the running game. Garrett Riley did that. So they need an identity of physical run. We were promised a dirt raid. Didn't get that at all, especially in 2025. Tight ends, another thing that you see with playoff teams, using a tight ends intentionally. Now I get it. Clemson has a lot of wide receivers and they had a running back that was a wide receiver combo. But even still, it felt as if Cade Klubnik didn't have Antonio Williams, the game plan was nothingness. That's what it felt like. You cannot do that. You cannot allow that as an offensive coordinator. If it was Cade's faults, then shame on Cade. But if it was Garrett Riley's fault, then shame on Garrett Riley, because you cannot allow a quarterback to get so gelled with one guy. And Cade, you could claim played favorites with Antonio Williams. You could claim that. Because without Antonio Williams, it was like nothingness, right? And that, in a lot of ways, falls on Garrett Riley. You've got to be balanced, not only, as Chris says in the comments, you got to be balanced with running the ball and passing the ball, but you also got to be balanced with what players you're using in what situations. and adjustments in game that are done with confidence and not just constantly reacting to, all the negative. That's what the next offensive coordinator has to do. But as I will agree with the Clemson fan base, the offensive coordinator must be empowered to run their system. They must be empowered to run their system. No more of this, well, we're going to bring him in and he's going to run the Clemson offense. That nothing changes with that. The new hire has to have autonomy to either bring in staff that they want, whether or not that staff is somebody who played on your championship team or not. And the new offensive coordinator has to have the autonomy to call the plays. Call the plays, start to finish, even situationally. And even when Dabo gets a wild hair to go do a trick play here or there, the offensive coordinator has got to have a statement to say, you know what, this ain't it. And maybe some of that falls on Garrett Riley being 34 years old. Or when he started, he was 34. I mean, such a young guy, maybe not as confident in saying no to Dabo. Whoever it is, the future depends on them. It's a lot riding on this next offensive coordinator. And I hate it for them. It's a lot of pressure. But guess what? As I just said, I hate it for them. They're going to be paid a lot because Clemson fans, we invest. If you look in the middle of nowhere, Clemson, South Carolina, there is an 81,000 fan stadium, bigger than most professional stadiums, with football operations facilities galore, more than a lot of the departments have in education. So you can't say Clemson fans don't travel. You can't say Clemson fans don't buy merchandise. You can't say Clemson fans don't purchase tickets and upgrade tickets and do everything they can to make sure that this team is successful. And I'm not just talking about 2025. I'm not just talking about Dabo Swinney era. My dad, and I'm sure your family, has been giving a lot of money to this team over decades. And this Clemson fan base is always going to be wanting excellence. Best is the standard is what Dabo Swinney brought along. But, I mean, Clemson fan base has been wanting a top team and demanding that for decades. It hadn't just been a Dabo Swinney thing. So that's what this offensive coordinator's got to do, whoever it may be. And I'm not going to speculate. I'll be honest with you. I'm not the best at speculating on who they could hire next. But to be honest with you, Clemson, Clemson has got a big challenge ahead to find somebody because, again, they got rid of a guy who won national championships. They got rid of a guy who brought in Trevor Lawrence, and they got rid of a guy who was a Broyles Award winner. Who are they going to get next? Whoever it is, there's more than just filling a role that is needed for Clemson. All right. Hey, thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. I'm looking at the comments as we finish up. Chris gets in and says it's a shame Bryant Wesco got hurt. I would agree with that. Nick gets in and says, hey, whoever you bring in's got to be allowed to bring in players from the portal. And I agree with that as well. Rogers gets in and says, there's experts out there. We'll say experts, okay, respectfully. But a lot of people thought that Clemson would be a playoff team, including myself. I'm not gonna sit up here and try to pretend like back in August I wasn't tooting the Clemson horn and just ripping up LSU fans, because I was, and here we are, and here we are. I put on X as well, and I'll finish with this. I'll put on X as well about Clemson having Dabo fatigue, or do Clemson fans have Dabo fatigue or not? And what I mean by that is just, are you you feeling like he's just a broken record saying the same thing over and over and over? And about 52 or more percent has said yes. About split 50-50 on the no or the maybe. And I will say this. Dabo, to me, is still the best opportunity for Clemson as a head coach because he is just that. He's not truly an offensive coordinator. He's never been. He's not a defensive coordinator. He's never been. So you can reset this team quickly. And I'm talking even in just a few weeks, you can reset this team if he's willing to allow his coordinators to do their job and to have that autonomy that we talked about. And if he's willing to take a step back and say, you know what, those 3 portal guys I brought in actually improved the team. Let's bring in 15. They're going to need about 15, in my opinion. They really are going to need about 15. And if it starts with a mega star quarterback, then I'll take it, because look at what the Heisman Trophy has been doing. Look at the Heisman Trophy award. All of the recent ones, transfer portal quarterbacks. This is the era of the new college football, college athletics. You've got to be willing to bring in guys that don't necessarily make their number one priority getting a degree from Clemson. They don't care where they get the degree from. They want to play ball, and they want to play ball at a high level. And I hate that's the way the college football is, but that is the way it is. All right, hey, I promise you, I know a lot of people got in the comments and talked about the Penn State game. You want me to complain about it? I will complain about it tomorrow's show. So make sure you subscribe and follow Locked on Clemson. I'm here. I've been here since February. All you can get, all you can eat episodes. So you can find me over on X at the Morgan T Show. If you never miss an episode, then the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked on Clemson ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head over to lockedonclemson.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club. And for those of you who are watching on video, I'm going to send you over to the 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel once this is loaded up. And if you're listening over on audio, thank you again for listening. Check out Locked on College Football for your second listen. Hey, and as always, Tiger fans, happy Monday and happy New Year, or at least soon, in a couple of days. By the way, my birthday's coming up too. Don't forget to get me something. But we'll see you, Tiger fans, tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.